to start telling you a little bit of background about this show whilst we wait for the others. So, and it's this recording, yes? Fabulous. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is based on a novella that dates from 1958 by an American writer named Paul Gallico, which had a couple different titles, but is best known as Mrs. Harris or Heiress Goes to Paris.
Harris, yeah.
Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which was the first of 4, I think, books that he wrote with this character. It's been adapted for the screen a few times, including a 1992 made-for-television film, which starred Angela Lansbury. Did anyone see that?
Yes.
You saw it? And then most recently, very recently, last year, it was made into a feature film starring Leslie Manville as Mrs. Harris. Did anyone see that?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. So did you find it very different seeing the musical? Yes. Okay, here we go. Hey! I would be very disappointed if you didn't come out with flowers.
Hi. How are you? Good.
Hello, everyone. So you guys will know this. I'm giving a potted history of this story and its various versions. So then we've had the screen versions, and then we had this beautiful musical that has a book by Rachel Wagstaff, and you can buy the playtext, ladies and gentlemen, in the foyer, and music and lyrics by Richard Taylor. I also want to give a shout out to the producer Vicky Graham, who drove this project from the very beginning. I think started it nearly 10 years ago, and she's a friend of mine, and I think she's wonderful. And so it started life, the musical, at Sheffield Crucible in about 2016, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone's nodding. And then it was at Chichester Festival Theatre in 2018, and then this beautiful production is the musical's long-awaited London premiere, starring these people, and directed by Brona Lagan. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Lagan. Okay. Okay, and now I can introduce you fully to Nate Campbell, Jenna Russell, Charlotte Kennedy, Hal Fowler, and Pippa Winslow. Now
Well done, you.
Yay! Right, okay. So, as I was explaining to the audience, we've got about 25 minutes. I'm going to get the ball rolling. We're going to be scanning the audience for questions, raised hands. And I just want to say to those of you on the stage, you obviously know the piece a lot better than I do or they do. So if you think we're missing something interesting, steer us in the right direction. But I've just given this history of the piece itself. So I'm wondering, cast, were any of you, how familiar with any of you were with those previous iterations, those incarnations? How familiar were you? Jenna?
Claire Burt, who played Ada in Sheffield and then in Chichester, is one of my oldest pals. And our dear school, we went to school together. Our other dear friend, Johnny Barr, who's my bestest friend, said, you have to go and see Clara in this show because she's glorious. So I went to their last matinee in Chichester, and I was an absolute wreck. Not only because the piece is so beautiful, but because Claire was so beautiful in it. And when you see a friend playing a part that is almost like it's tailor-made for them and shows them off in the most beautiful way. I went to her at the stage door and I was sobbing like a baby. And Daniel Evans directed it, who I did Sunday in the Park with George with when he was an actor, and now he's like one of the world's best directors, and it was glorious. So that was my history with it. And when they asked me about 8 months ago, I just got this phone call saying, do you know Flowers for Mrs. Harris? They're going to do it, and they'd like you to do it. And I went, yes. But Claire and I have talked about it because it's hard, you know. When you're so celebrated for something. I mean, Claire was very generous and said, it's not my part, and I know it's not her part, but it was her part, and she was so amazing in it. But she gave me her blessing, and then about that sounds poncy. She didn't. She said, don't be silly. Of course you must do it. You'll love it. You'll cry all the time. It's the most gorgeous thing. But she then rang me back. We used to have this joke about doing bad American accents. We've always had this joke since we were kids. And she went, I've just been thinking, maybe you should do Ada in American accent. That is a really good idea. So that's my history.
That's
with
very
the
good.
show.
Had anyone else seen the films or the? Charlotte, you said you saw the 2022 film or the?
Oh, yeah. Well, when in preparation for the show, I watched the one with Angela Lansbury, which I didn't even know existed, and I also watched the film with Leslie Manville.
Okay.
Yeah, but I hadn't seen the show before. I'd heard lots of things about it, and everyone who went said it was the most amazing thing. So, yeah.
And there was a filmed version of the Chichester version on YouTube, and I watched that during lockdown, and I kind of was a bit over theatre on screen in lockdown, but that one really captured me. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to it.
Hal?
Well, I mean, my experience, I saw some of the Chichester one on YouTube, but that's because that's what they sent as a link for the audition material. Because they said, all right, this is what it is. For reference, you can see that. And I knew Mark, I'd worked with Mark, who played Albert Harris. And in fact, Claire and I used to date many years ago and had a house together. So it was like a bizarre thing. So it was just like a walk through the, it's just, and of course Jenna and I had, when I heard, and then when I had to go back in again and say it was Jenna, because Jenna and I worked together in our early 20s.
Wow.
Playing.
Which was a few years ago, right? Just
Well,
a couple of years.
it's we're playing.
we've
playing.
hung out a lot.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. No, it was
Do you
an
want
alarm.
to take it?
No, it was an alarm. It's from my makeup. Sorry.
And so we played D'Artagnan and Constance opposite. Was it Constance?
Yes, it was Constance.
Opposite each other, and we were 22.
Wow.
I think then in our 30s we played Arnaud de Thiel and Bertrand
In Martin
Martin Guerre. We didn't work in our 40s together, did we?
No, we didn't.
We're
no.
looking forward to 60s and 70s.
Yes,
together.
we are.
All to play for.
Yeah, we're wondering if there's on Golden Pond or something we could do. A musical of that or
musical
something.
version.
Yeah.
And Pippa, what do you think, or anyone? Well, one, had you been familiar with it before? And what do you think it is about this story, which in many ways it's a very gentle story, isn't it? What is it that makes it endure and so open to different interpretations?
I think there's so many universals in it. Everyone wants to have a nicer life, and there's a lot of that. And there's also everyone's dealing with loss, and to watch somebody deal with loss, as she does, gets me every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the little moments I have on stage with you, I'm like, oh, hold it together, please. Yeah. It's just so many universals.
Anyone else want to comment on that? What do you think it is about this story that makes it endure?
I think it's also this want for the dress is kind of the thing, but it's so much deeper than that. It's just that want for companionship and community, and also noticing people around you when sometimes you don't feel like they are too, which I think is quite beautiful at the end, that symbolism.
Yes, there's that great line, everyone wants to be noticed. That,
Yes.
and
And
Mrs. Harris
beauty,
and Pamela.
something, just appreciating something beautiful. My granny was a cleaner. Oh, I'm not going to get emotional about my little gran, but it keeps coming back to me how hard my granny worked as a cleaner. And then she would go home and clean the steps. She lived at the top of a block of flats, and she'd clean all the stone steps. And I remember I was telling you, wasn't I? I went and stayed with her. She up in Dundee in Scotland, and I went and stayed with her. I must have left behind a bit of Clinique makeup, a bit of foundation. And she spoke to me and she went, "You've left your foundation here, your Clinique." And I went, "Oh, you can have that." I said, "Just have that." And then I found out a couple of years later that she loved it so much, and she went to the only department store that was in Dundee, all proudly, with the bottle. She went, "I'll have one of those, please." And they told her it was like 30 quid, and she went, "Oh, no. And it broke my heart because it was something nice for her, and I wish I'd known, because I would have bought her tons of it. But it's that thing, isn't it? You see something lovely, and it just brings something to you that you didn't know. You lift your head above the parapet, and suddenly there's this world. And I think that's, for Ada, it's just something beautiful, something she'd never imagined. And through that, this beautiful journey of unlocking everyone else, and then them all unlocking her. It's such a lovely story.
And she is the title character right at the center of it. How would you describe her in a nutshell?
She's just a very kind, decent, honest, working class woman
Yeah,
who just gets her head down and gets on with it.
yeah.
And those women are amazing.
They are, and it's fabulous, isn't it, to have a woman like that, and also, can I say, a woman in her 50s as the leading character, the leading lady. It's really refreshing. So other casts, it's so fun about the show, and I imagine if I were you, would be fun, because this is really a show of two halves for the rest of you, isn't it? You've got your this bit in drab old post-war London, and then the colour of going to Paris, and you each have your French, I don't know, doppelganger is not the right word, but you get to play English, French, and an awful American. So what's that like, kind of switching across the channel? And do you have a favourite, your Anglo or your French persona? Which is your favourite? I'm looking at Hal, he's looking at me.
Oh, I mean, I'm not sure about having a favourite, because it's all just part of this, great story. And I think for me, and sort of, I'm just going to slightly go back a bit as well, that, there's something really, for me, fascinating about Ada's character. Although, for her, it's when she sees the dress, she obviously has this great moment. But unbeknownst to her, she takes all that interest, the same interest she has with the dress, she shows that with all her neighbours and everyone she cleans with.
Yeah.
So she's this sort of natural meditator, sort of Zen character that just is still, even throughout her sort of busyness, there's a stillness about her, and she notices stuff, and she cares, and she's attentive. So I think for all of us, it's very much about whichever part we're playing in whichever half. It's just about helping serve that story and allowing the character of Ada to reflect, in all those characters that we play.
Oh, that's beautifully put.
But
Nate said.
no, the French was hard. Okay? And the accent was hard.
Did any of you speak French?
No.
No.
Still don't. It just sounds that I've learned in a row.
And we realised as well that we can't improvise in French in the same way. So when we were in the picnic scene, Brona said to us, maybe
A few
you can have
words.
some words before, and we were like, well, I don't know. It's that whole thing.
I don't know any.
So we've had to. Hal was great because Hal speaks French.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so that was really helpful. We were like, give us some phrases.
We did have a rather difficult preview, and I have to confess here, it was all entirely my fault, and I've actually apologised. And when we came off from the dress showing, which is the first big scene of Paris, and all the dresses come out, I had walked off stage, and I'd done a left instead of a right. And I saw my hat for the flower market. I thought, oh, this must be the flower market next. I put my hat on, and I got ready. I went to sound department. They pulled the mic down. I thought, great, I'll do the flower market, wait for my cue. And then I thought, it's a bit of a long time. What's going on here? And then I heard Jenna saying something like, well, I'll just go home now then. I thought, it's an interesting line. I wonder what. And I thought, oh my God, it's me. It's the scene where the marquee, and of course, the rest of the cast were on stage. The only way they could get out of it was to improvise, but it would have
In
to be in French. It was sort of, I felt so terrible.
Pippa was brilliant.
Pippa saved the day,
Because
didn't you?
Pippa suddenly came in with the lines that was to get us back on track, but then her next line, she took someone else's lines who wasn't there either, and got us back on track. Then her next line was, "I'm so sorry, but my English is not good." Bravo, Pippa.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of all sort of smutty French phrases that would come to mind. Okay, audience, how are you feeling? Are you feeling
You're hot thinking about it.
People in the audience that do speak French.
Because
I did
my
hear-
friend Steph
Because
does.
I did hear reactions to the French today that we usually don't hear. I mean, it's like, yeah.
Was it bad?
I can understand you.
That matters. That's a win.
One of our assistant producers is from French-speaking Switzerland, and so he was our dialect coach for a lot of things. And he's at some point in the rehearsal period, he's like, "That actually actually sounded French. I was like, right.
Well, it's quite brave actually to have so much of the piece in French. You
I
don't
love
have-
it. I love that it, because the whole audience is with Ada, aren't they?
Yep.
They're going,
What's
what
going
the
on?
fuck is going on? I love that. And I love that it goes on for just a bit too long. And you go, the whole act's going to be this. I love
And
it.
was there ever any discussion about like having surtitles or something?
No,
Just let us flounder.
Yeah.
Love it.
But that's the authors. When I said, why don't they have, they said, it's because we want the audience to feel like they don't know what's going on as well. To really
okay.
feel for
Yeah.
Ada. That was the whole point of that. So.
In the play text, you do get the translation. Okay, audience, are you warmed up? Who's got a question? Yes, here.
I've gone. I just want to say I really enjoyed the show and I've never cried so much at anything. So it's so lovely. But my question is there anything in your life that you've ever wanted as much as Mrs. Harrison saved up for?
That was on my list.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
That's a really good
Anything you'd want as much as the Dior dress, the equivalent of the Dior dress for Ada. Okay, wait, okay. Actually, audience, think about that because I was actually going
I've
to
got
end with
one.
that question. We
I've
can
got
we,
one.
Can we end? Can we end with
Yes,
it, Jenna?
okay.
So everybody think about it, and then everyone's going to have to say at the end what their
Okay.
Dior dress would be. Okay, but great question. Other hands? Other hands? Yes, here.
Some of you had some breathtaking, quick changes, not just costume changes, but look changes. Just in a flash. How are these accomplished? Presumably you will have a lot of crew backstage helping.
You would
No.
hope, but no, there's one woman, and her name is Jo
Yeah.
Lewis, and she is
She's
in
amazing.
Round of
She's
applause.
amazing.
Round of applause for Jo.
They're quick. I mean, the tack was hilarious. And actually, today when I came back through the door as Pamela, I looked like I'd been dragged through a hedge backwards. But that does work for her. But they are quite quick. But you the more you do them, I guess you get into the. I remember when we first did the red, going into the red dress. That was so quick.
You didn't even appear in our dress room.
No, I wasn't there.
You hadn't quite made it.
I made it down for the last beat. They're getting there. But yeah.
But actually, to that point, particularly with the fashion show,
Yeah.
Charlotte Pippa, is that really fun to be wearing those beautiful
They're
dresses?
stunning. They're beautiful. The red one, yeah, is that's your dream, really, isn't it? To wear a beautiful. Well,
And
it's mine.
who gets to keep the dresses at the end of the run?
They're from
They're Sheffields.
Sheffield. They're from the production.
back in a box.
They're going back to Sheffield. Yeah, I'd love the red one. If anyone would, I'd like to have it.
If it's up for grabs. Okay, other hands from the audience? Yes, there.
The dresses in the show were absolutely gorgeous. Were any of them from the House of Dior?
They're replicas. So they, I think when they were designing the production in Sheffield, they looked at the Dior designs at the time, and then kind of they were replicas.
The dress the first white dress, it's called Petto here, but it's a replica of Juno, which is a very iconic Dior dress. So yeah, they're all replicas.
And has Christian Dior been invited? You don't know.
Sponsored by
I think they
Dior,
should.
that'd be nice.
I think they should.
I wonder what you think of that.
Okay, other hands, other hands. Very, very shy people on a Sunday afternoon. Okay, so I am wondering, the flowers in the show, very lovely. Does that really work with the penny in the vase? Who can tell me? 'Cause
Yeah,
Does it? It does work. Oh, lovely. But it has to be a copper penny.
Yeah, 2-piece were best.
Oh,
They do
Aspirin works
two-piece
well as well,
anymore.
I believe, doesn't it? No, it does. Aspirin as well.
Aspen, right.
Okay. And have you had any cast outings to Paris? Are you going to go to Paris at some point?
Great idea.
I think.
the bed bugs. I don't know. Not sure.
That is okay. In the back there.
I'm just wondering, I know you're not kind of on the writing team or anything like that, but do you know whether the writing team had any trouble getting the rights to this piece? It's not an original book or anything, so you know.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
They did tell the story, but I don't remember there being a problem with that because that wasn't part of their story.
Is
about
the writer
journey.
still alive?
Of the book, Paul Gallico.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. No, I could be wrong about that, but there is in both the play text and the souvenir program. There are notes from the director and the writers of this musical. And it is, as I was saying, you know, so many musicals, they are so long in development. So this one did take over 10 years to come to fruition. Right, any other questions? I was wondering, actually, if you know that Paul Caligo, he wrote other books with Mrs. Harris.
Yes.
Have you read any of them?
No, I haven't. I have read Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, but I haven't read. She goes to New York, doesn't she?
And Moscow.
And Moscow. That's
And Parliament.
and where?
Parliament.
Parliament. Oh, that'd be a good one. She'll sort them out.
Can you,
difficult rhyme,
could
that
you
one,
see
isn't
like
it?
a sequel? Could you see like a sequel when she goes to these other places?
Well, that's another 10 years down the line. Me and Hal will be too old.
Well, no, you're looking for parts in your 60s and 70s. It's fine. Okay, I think we've got time for maybe 1, 2 more questions. Yes, here.
Did the local references, is that part of the actual story that it was Battersea and things like that?
Yeah.
Did they transfer when they did it in Sheffield? Did they still do Battersea?
Yeah, they still did Battersea,
Yeah.
And how great that you're so close to Battersea.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
It's
Is Willis
lovely.
Gardens an actual street?
I don't
Someone
know.
looked and said it
Someone
wasn't.
looked and said it wasn't
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question before we come to the last one? Okay. So, cast, have you been thinking about this one? What do you covet as much as Ada covets the Dior dress? Any equivalents? Jenna, you had something you
I
were gonna
do
say.
have something, but I've realised as I've cooled down, actually it's a bit,
Bit naff.
well, potentially, but I know I've never saved for anything.
Come on.
Okay. This is going to make it quite hard because it's so not frothy. Anyway, here we go. I tried for years to have a child, and it was a disaster. So I saved up to do IVF. I'd done it in London, in Whitstable, Canterbury, where I live, and it had gone horribly wrong. And then I was doing a job, she says, in New York, and I saved up, and I did IVF in New York that I had to pay for, and it worked. That's the only thing I've saved for.
That's very kind of you to share that.
I
with
know.
us.
And the big wodge of money, because there was a big wodge for the actual thing, bizarrely came because I did a private concert for Marty Granoff and Steve Sondheim, and it was that money that they gave me that allowed me to do it. So
Thank you,
there.
Mr.
Isn't that nice?
Sondheim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
And now
Sondheim.
she drives me mad.
Can anyone top that story?
Well, I was going to say to the question, I mean, you know, actors that work in theatre in London post-COVID and saving don't really ever appear in the same conversation. So, but what I try and do is at least really work hard in the week to try and save for my meal deal on a Saturday between shows. And then I know I'm on track. Yeah.
I don't know whether mine's the same. When I was at drama school, and my mum and dad are actually here today, which is really special.
Where's Charlotte's mum and dad?
They're here, my mum and dad in this reputed room. And they were amazing. And I was cry. I was really lucky. I had a scholarship, but it's still a lot of money, and we didn't have any maintenance grant. So my mum and dad helped with that, but I went and got a job at the weekend. And I know it doesn't sound like very much, but I just wanted to help pay my way through, so I wasn't completely relying on them. And yeah, so I kind of really saved so that I could get through drama school.
And it's paid off.
And it's so there we go. But that's my thing.
Nate?
Mine's before I became an actor, my aspiration was to be a chef since I was a child. So I used to do paper rounds and stuff, and then the thing I wanted more than anything was a food mixer. I know it sounds pathetic. I was 7.
No, it's great.
But I wanted one so much, and they were like £400. So I saved to get this mixer, and I loved it. I loved it. Like my character loves the camera. I loved this mixer. I would make anyway. So I saved for that and bought it myself. So maybe that's my
Have you still got it?
Well, it's dead now. The engine's gone. But I've got a new one, and she's replaced. Yeah.
Does your mixer have a name? It sounds like she has a name.
No, she's just the she.
She's of course. Okay. And finally, Pippa, what do you call
Oh,
it?
I'm not good at saving. I remember as a child falling in love with Barbie dresses.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So as a child, that was I would take a portion of my allowances and save for the dresses that I wanted for my dolls. But yeah, that's the last I remember actually saving.
I'm waiting for Barbie the musical. Surely it cannot be.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, one very silly, frivolous question. But Charlotte,
Yeah.
how much chocolate cake do you have to eat in a
Right,
week?
so when we were in tech, I was like, do you think it would be should I try and eat a whole piece of cake? So I'm really trying, but it's I then got to talk afterwards, and I don't know what it is about eating on stage, but I just couldn't. There's so much cake in my mouth, so I'm determined by the end of the run to eat a whole piece. I just think it's quite funny, as like her being a model, and I don't know, like her eating cake and really enjoying it.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's
I like
fantastic.
cake, though.
So, Cast, was there anything important that we missed just before we finish? What else can you tell us about this beautiful show that we must go forth and share?
I think it's another thing is small acts of, seemingly small acts of kindness, but actually how they build up to something much bigger.
Yeah.
And I think at the moment we all need kindness in any kind of thing. So I think if anyone wants to tell anyone, come and see our show. It is about that. It's about kindness and how that has a ripple effect and a larger impact going forward.
Beautiful. Anything else?
Go with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that summed it up.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Charlotte, well done. Okay, wait. Don't clap yet. Don't clap yet.
Round of applause for
this,
Charlotte.
well done. So, Flowers for Mrs. Harris is now booking here until the 25th of November. So, audience, you are now our champions for the show. Please go forth, tweet, post, hashtag, grab people off the street, grab some flyers. When we finish, I wonder if we could just get a group shot, and anybody that is on social media, if you get your phones out and take photos and share that. And audience, you've been wonderful. You are my staying people. I love you. And please join me in thanking Nate and Jenna and Charlotte and Hal and Pippa.